Hello. I'm back, and this is Founder Season. We're kicking off with Sebastian, who is a Romanian born founder, and he has founded Adevar Labs, which is a web free security firm. It's one of the bigger ones, one of the more serious ones, so that's pretty cool to have him and to see his journey from how he left Romania and went and did his master's and his PhD in European countries, and then eventually sort of raised to the ranks in outside of crypto and then within crypto to get to the point where he founded Adevar. And really, this is what this season is going to be about. It's going to be about founders like him, about their journeys, how they grew up, and what made them who they are, and got into the point of being able and willing to found a company, and also potentially about their lifestyle as founders. I think this is very interesting to me because I also have that itch, although I haven't really fully scratched it yet. And hopefully, with this season, founder season, I'm actually going to stick to it. Unlike other seasons where we only have like 3 episodes, and you're gonna see like 5 or 10 episodes. I want to shoot them within the next few months and release them as I go. And then obviously I'm gonna take another few months break like you guys are used to. I like the seasons format, and every season can have its own theme and topic, but I'm not gonna hold you any longer. Watch this, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get into it. I want to give a quick overview of your story because, as I've told you in the green room, what I want to do today is talk about Sebastian, the person, and not Sebastian, the businessman, not necessarily Adevar, not necessarily crypto, just sort of your journey and how you got here. Because I'm trying to turn this into a podcast about founders more so than anything else. The story in a nutshell for everybody who's watching this and doesn't know it is that you started coding very early as an 11-year-old. Eventually, you went to college in Cluj, which I don't know if it's your hometown. We'll find out soon enough. Then you took a master in the Netherlands. Then you eventually did a PhD in Munich. So a lot of moves here. And eventually, through multiple jobs, you found your way into crypto, founded not one, but 2 companies, or co-founded one, and eventually founded Adevar. And now we are here. Hello, Sebastian.
Hello. Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with the very beginning. At one point in one of your tweets, you mentioned that you started coding when you were 11 years old. What sort of prompted that?
I was lucky. I consider myself a very lucky guy. My parents, even though they are not computer scientists and not mathematicians or anything, they noticed that IT was booming very early on. So, like when I was something like 6 years old, my mom was already talking about Bill Gates,
Wow.
and the empire he had built at that time. And that was in the 90s, right? That was
Yeah.
very early. And she was nudging me to go in that direction, right? Like I was actually like more artistic. So if it were up to me, I would probably end up being a painter or something, you know? I would have gone to art school or something like that. But the economics was always in favor
Oh, yeah.
of IT. And my parents bought me a computer when I was very young, and I just started playing on it, just playing games. I think like the first, game was just Microsoft Paint,
Oh,
in
yeah.
Windows 3.1. That was the first operating system, and there was like I don't know what the game was called anymore, but it was like a Formula One
Oh,
game, very pixelated. It had only 3 cars you could pick from, and then you had like a pool game and Prince of Persia, the first
oh
version of
yeah.
Prince of
I remember
Persia.
that.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
that.
So I played games for several years, and Mortal Kombat came later,
Oh,
right? Mortal
yes.
Kombat,
Yeah, that
yes.
was amazing.
Yes. So I played games for a few years, and then at some point, when I was 11, I was in middle school, and the school where I was at started having, at that time, informatics as one of the subjects. So yeah, that was like a good, opportunity to start also taking private coding lessons from one of
Okay.
our family friends who had just finished her computer science studies and was working, locally at some company. Um, and then, I just started slowly. At the beginning, it was fascinating, but then I also got bored at some point because
It was hard.
no, it was. I think like you start learning a bit, and then you get into a lot of algorithms, but the visual effects are no longer. Um,
I get it.
I
I
don't
get
know.
what you're
They're
trying to
no.
say.
They're yeah. They don't capture your attention as much.
You,
They're not as flashy. So
you
one
don't
thing I
feel like
started.
you don't feel like you produce anything. This is why I used to tell people way back before AI that they should start coding with PHP, because even though it's very like not modern, you get to build something that you can actually interact with, and you can look at it and it exists and it motivates you to keep going.
That's exactly what I did. So I think like in high school, when I got to high school, I started coding websites. And I think I had, my first clients when I was in high school building
Nice.
websites for them, right? And it
Nice.
was all HTML. I think at that time it was HTML4, so very basic. Bit of JavaScript. JavaScript was already fancy, like you had like some JavaScript. It was fancy, and then
Did you
it
have
was
jQuery back then?
no, no,
Insane.
no, just really basic. No, no, there were barely any JavaScript libraries as far as I knew. I don't know when jQuery came out, but I wasn't aware of it anyway. And yeah, built a few online presentation websites, and also I remember my first year of university, I built the first online shop. Um,
Oh,
like using
that-
databases and
yeah.
a proper lamp. Lamp,
I know Lamp. I started on Lamp.
a proper lamp setup. And it was like that was like so fascinating because you had the
Yeah.
visual outcome, which is not just the console outcome, right?
Yeah.
Um,
How much
and
did the website go for back then?
I don't remember, to be honest, but I was doing it more to gain experience because I started coding on something which was called Rent a Coder.
Rent a
Uh,
coder.
Rent a Coder. I think it got rebranded to something like freelance.com or something.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, the blue
But
one.
back in the day, it was called Rent a Coder. It had a really basic interface. And I started doing gigs on it. And at some point, I was in the top 1% or something like that.
Wow. Okay. Remote
So,
working since like this is
yes,
way back in the
exactly.
day.
This is early 2000s.
Insane.
And yeah, I remember I had like a bunch of Canadian customers.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was remote. I didn't even think about it back then, but that was remote work.
it was remote
but
work
but very
indeed.
much project based. Very much project based. Yeah.
Still, you were a pioneer of the remote world. Like I remember reading about not necessarily you, but guys like you who were doing this sort of thing when I was growing up. Because I'm a bit younger than you, so I did high school in the 2010s, early
Okay.
2010s. And I was like so enamored with this idea of wow, these guys are actually just going on a website and they're working with these people from like Canada or the US, and they're like working from home, and it was
Yeah.
amazing to me.
Yes. I actually have a story about this. So in my first year, after my first year of university, I started learning, about proper computer science, not just, stuff
Yeah.
that was self-taught. And during the day, I was working in construction, and after like 6 p.m., once the day was done, I was going online and working as a web developer,
Nice.
building whatever web applications. And I had like really long days, so I was like up until at least midnight, and then had to get up the next day, very
Yeah.
early to go,
Construction is like that.
actually build stuff. Yeah.
I also work in construction, and yeah, you start the day at 5, 6 a.m., and it's so just tiring. And for me, basically doing the parallel, which I imagine you also did at that point, was like, well, I can sit here on a chair in AC and I make more money than doing construction work. This is the way. Like, this is it. Um,
Yes, sir.
you you did college in Cluj, though. Did you
Yes.
move there, or were you always
Yeah.
from there?
No, I moved there. That's another story, right? Like this started, like, as I told you, as my mom was pushing me towards computer science. And initially I wanted to go to Bucharest, but it was too far from home. So I live in a smaller town which is closer to Cluj. And I think like a lot of my classmates were going to Cluj.
Yeah.
Um, and
Was it seen as the Silicon Valley of Romania back then too, or is that a new
no,
phenomenon?
I think it's relatively new. Yeah, I mean, like, it was not back then. It was starting to be,
Okay.
but not as much. I think like at that time, going to computer science was still seen as meh. I don't know.
Mhm.
It was maybe you're gonna get a job after you finish, maybe not.
Okay.
It was not like, oh, you're guaranteed to get a job if you finish computer science, right? I think like later it was like that, but yeah, it was a good decision. Yeah.
So, uh, this is all very interesting. Now you're in college. You're doing freelancing, remote. I would imagine. Maybe it's not the case, but I would imagine you get enough work that you can at least sustain yourself. And yet, you
Mm,
still no.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I
But
think
was
like,
it
yeah, the costs of living were a bit higher, but I made some money, right?
okay?
But I was still like very much focused on studying. So I think
Okay.
like I was spending probably, I don't know, 80% or more of my time awake studying. And then the rest I was spending a lot of my like full time during the vacation, like we have like a very long
Yeah.
vacation. So like 3 months of the year I was working, but other than that, I was really focused on studying. So I wanted to finish, top of my class, and
Oh.
maybe get a scholarship to go study abroad. So like I had this goal in mind
Okay. So it
pretty
was a
early.
goal.
It was, yeah, it was like, I think like I learned that it is a possibility, in my second year of
Okay.
university, and then started like focusing on that. Yeah. And the story, sorry, just for jumping a bit back,
Yeah,
but
don't
in
worry.
high school, I was not convinced that I want to do computer science. So after my second year of high school, I I told my parents I want to go abroad and work, in construction.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
so I had an aunt and uncle who were living in Portugal at the time,
Okay.
and he was working in construction. And I said like, hey, can I visit you and then I can work with you, And he said like, yeah, sure. But he knew like how difficult it was. He's like, yeah, sure, just come over and see for yourself. Oh my God, it was like super hard because of the heat. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that crazy heat in Portugal. Working on a construction site in that heat for the full day, you
Yeah.
really appreciate a glass of water
Oh, you
after
do.
after that kind of work. and any food is amazing, after you spent a day work. And I think that experience, I spent like, I don't know how much time, but it was around a month. And that experience basically made me decide, okay, like probably not gonna do
Yeah,
construction.
probably not.
I'm gonna I'm gonna do computer science, right? And I remember our friend who was teaching me computer science back home. She was sort of making fun of me. She was like, "You're not taking the right path, dude. Like, just like forget about construction. Like you will be earning way more doing computer science."
I guess it felt more like immediate money, right? And that's why it was tempting.
Yeah,
I see with a lot of kids, just random kids like from Romania DM me sometimes and they ask me for advice. And I guess you get that more than I do because you're a bigger personality. But they usually have this thought process exactly like you had back then, where it's like, should I go get a job in like this European country and I'm gonna make like 3,000 euro a month or whatever, or should I keep then studying for the next 1 or 2 years or self studying and maybe I'm gonna have a job later, and you have to really tell them like, no, it's not a maybe. If you actually stick to this, you will have a job. Maybe not in a year, maybe not in two, maybe not in three, maybe not in four, but it's gonna come at some point. And trust me, 3,000 euro a month is nothing compared to what you can make in the tech industry. And you live in Romania, which is cheaper, and you're home. This
right.
actually is a very interesting question that, or a topic. Living in Romania and working abroad, or living in Romania and working remotely versus living outside of Romania. And I think the decision nowadays is much, much more different than it was when you took the decision to move to Netherlands, because Romania was a whole different picture even 15 years ago, let alone older than that. But I really wanted to talk to you about the thought process you had when you moved to Netherlands, and you sort of gave me some insight already because you said that this was a goal already in high school and in college in second year. But weren't you scared at all of moving to Netherlands? You don't even know the language at this point because it's not English. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
how was
definitely.
how were you thinking about that?
Uh, it was interesting. I think like I was again lucky because in during my university years, I had like the right type of friends. So I made friends with the with the right colleagues. Let's say I was hanging out with the right crew that sort of helped me towards that mindset. And these guys, they all had that similar goal to study abroad after finishing university. At that point in time, it was very uncommon to do your bachelor studies abroad because Romania was not yet in the EU.
Yeah,
So you needed to get a visa. It was much more complicated. But after I finished my university studies, Romania was in the EU, so you no longer needed a visa, and studying abroad was much easier at that point in
yeah,
time, right? So we started applying for master positions, like for scholarships, basically, because we couldn't afford just going abroad and studying abroad. Like no way I could afford that, right? So we started applying for a bunch of different scholarships in the third year of university already. Um, End of the third year, beginning of the fourth year. Some like they had different deadlines, but you needed to know about these. Like if you just like figured out, oh, I want to study abroad once you finish your fourth year, like good luck finding anything, right? So these scholarships you needed to apply very early on, and we went through that application process with multiple ones, and I was lucky to get multiple opportunities, so multiple scholarships, and I picked this one in the Netherlands because it had to do with security. So in my last 2 years of university studies in Romania, I realized security is something really cool.
it
Um, I was fascinated by hacker movies,
is.
um, and it just seemed like really fascinating to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I just decided, I didn't know much about security, but I just decided, yeah, I want to do that. So that program in the Netherlands was focusing on security. And I just, said like, let's do it. And I got the acceptance, very early. Like it was, I finished my university in October, or like, well, no, actually finished university in July, and I got the reply that I got the scholarship in April. So
Okay.
it was much earlier. I already knew where I was going by the time I finished. And it was a bit scary, but I was lucky to move there together with my wife. Um, and
Was she your wife back then too?
well, she became my wife just before we moved.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a big move for her, I imagine. Did she just tag along, or did she also have something to do there?
Well, she found stuff to do there, but like
Okay.
she at first like just took a leap of faith. Yes. Yeah. So
Okay. Well, um, I'm happy for you, and I congratulate you on just finding this basically the love of your life who would do this with you. This is amazing. This is beautiful.
yeah, I think like moving abroad alone is a very different story compared to moving with someone that you
Oh
trust,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Would you say with how much Romania has changed in the past decades, would you have done the same thing today? Would you have still moved to Netherlands, or would you tell your kid to move to Netherlands, or would you tell him to stay here and basically figure it out remotely?
I think like the experience abroad, actually living, not just visiting, is a good experience.
Okay.
So I would encourage my kids to study abroad. Yeah. Just to get the experience, because otherwise um, you're a bit stuck and unaware of some things that are just the way they are here.
Yeah.
And you don't even know, oh, it's actually very much possible to do things a different way, um, and you're yeah, I wasn't aware of many such things, especially like in public administration or even just like
Mm,
day-to-day stuff. um, and when you need to actually live there to have like an interaction with the system,
yeah.
to be able to judge and tell the difference. Like if you visit, you don't have this interaction with the system. So
That's true.
um
That's true. Yeah, that's true. You're right, especially about like public administration stuff like that. And some cities in Romania, I think they are adopting more digitalization and sort of more efficient ways of working.
yeah,
Um, but some are still so behind. And I don't know why this sort of culture shift in Romania exists, but that's definitely not a topic for us to discuss today. Um, it's very interesting that you told me that you would tell your kids to move. I have two kids. Um, well, I have one and one's on the way, and I don't know that I would tell them to go. Um,
yeah,
but I would miss them. But that's yeah,
yeah, that's for sure. I would definitely miss them a lot. Yes. So
yeah. Let's jump a bit forward. At some point after you finished the masters in Netherlands, you eventually moved once more to Germany to do your PhD. So you're used to moving at this point. I guess that also biases your
oh,
answers here, but that's besides the point. At some point, you joined crypto, and I'm curious why. What motivated you? For me, it was sort of, and for a lot of people like me, it was simple because it was like, well, banking in Romania sucks. I don't want to get my money frozen when somebody sends the money to me from like outside of the country. So it felt like a natural anti-system, anti-status quo, and also like a form of rebelling and a form of getting access to actual worldwide finance. But you were already in civilized quote unquote countries.
yeah.
So what
So it was
prompted you?
not this. It was not this. Yeah. Um, So actually, like I heard about crypto very early, um, and in the beginning there were no stable coins, right? It was just
Oh yeah.
Bitcoin, and I thought it was like I thought it was not gonna make it, you know. So like we've seen a lot of Ponzi schemes in the past decades,
Oh yeah.
especially in Romania.
Oh yeah.
So I couldn't really distinguish whether this is going to be a similar thing, right? Um, and and I stayed away from it. And what got me into crypto is actually what also got me to move from the Netherlands to Germany. After my master's, I started working immediately in industry in the at Philips TV, the former Philips TV, which was sort of like bought by a Taiwanese company, but they were still making the Philips TV sets, and they had a research center in the Netherlands. But I quickly realized, okay, my day to day is, like looking a bit into the security of these TV sets, playing a bit with some cryptographic libraries that are going to be deployed on these TV sets. But in the end, I was spending most of my time putting together PowerPoint presentations for upper management to explain why we should buy a certain solution and not another solution, right? But I wasn't spending enough time diving deep into those solutions to see like how they work, everything inside. I wanted to like tear them apart, and I just didn't have time for that, and I wanted to do that. So I discovered at Philips TV this adversarial model called man at the end, where basically maybe you know about man in the middle, which is a classical
Yeah.
security attacker, which is sitting between Alice and Bob, and the man in the middle is trying to eavesdrop. The man at the end is different. It's basically Alice is the software producer or the hardware producer, and Bob is the attacker, the man at the end, who gets the software and tries to crack it on his own environment, where there's no like way for Alice to intervene. And that's the same with TV sets, right? If you have a TV set, someone buys it and they can tear it apart at home and
I gotta
reverse
ask
engineer it.
though. I gotta ask. Why would anyone want to hack a TV?
Oh, that's a good
Everybody wants
question.
to hack a TV.
It's because of the content. So you basically get a lot of these streaming services like Netflix or whatever was popular back in the day, or even like actually TV channels that stream a movie that is relatively new and not available, and people want to record it with
Oh,
good quality, not just holding a
yeah.
camera to the TV set. They want to record it directly from the TV set. That's why they want to hack it. They want to copy the content and put it on torrent.
Okay.
So it's like $1 billion business.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually causing billions of dollars in losses for the content producers, right? And that's why they want
Imagine.
to solve this problem, right? And there are regulations on TV sets that they should have this copy protection on it. Otherwise, if your TV doesn't have that, then
It's very
the
easy for the content to be ripped, and basically, you, the TV producer, are causing a lot of just damage to
yeah,
whoever's producing the movie.
you can't even sell your TV set. Like you
Okay.
can't sell your TV set if you can't put it in a shop. It's illegal if you don't have that. So that's sort of the reason behind this. And yeah, I started doing this. The company wasn't doing really well at that point in time in their history. And I said like, okay, this is pretty boring. So I wanna dive deep into this problem And I was looking for PhD programs that would allow me to do that. And I applied again, similar to my master's story, I applied again to different positions in different countries. But I was always focusing on Europe because I didn't want to be too far away from my
Yeah.
family. And actually, I wanted to get closer to my family. So that's why the Netherlands to Munich. My wife's mother was already living in that area.
Okay.
So it was like moving closer to family already. Yeah, and I found a position. Germany is actually a very good place to do your PhD because you're actually an employee. You're not
Okay.
a student. You're actually a teaching assistant. So you get a salary, you pay for pension, you pay taxes, you pay everything,
Nice.
and you sort of do your PhD in your free time. So I learned
Nice.
what that means the hard way. It's as sort of like brutal as it sounds because you need to teach and correct exams and handle students, and then in your free time you need to write papers and get them published at international conferences. And the higher the rank of the conference, the better it is for your PhD. So many people take a long time to finish it because of that. I think like the average time to finish is 6 years maybe, or
Wow.
5.
Wow.
And some people, like, there are stories, I don't know anyone personally, but like there are stories that some people take like 12 years or never finish.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow. That is insane.
yeah, I think like the PhD in countries like Germany is not the same as in other countries, because you really need to have very good quality publications and make your supervisor happy. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to defend your PhD. But still, I think like the craziest PhD situation or defense is in the Netherlands, where you actually have something like more than 6 or 8 professors from different universities on your committee, and they all need to find the right time to meet and be present at your defense. And then they all ask questions, and I think any of them can decide that you're not good enough and you will not pass. So there
Wow.
are some cases, not many, but there are some cases in which during the defense the candidate was failed,
Okay.
because the committee decided to fail them. So it's a bit more scary. But I was, again, very lucky. I finished in 4 years. And after that, I did the same mistake of going to an enterprise job, this time at BMW, where I thought I would be hacking cars.
And
um, and again, I saw a lot of people hacking cars and trying to protect them and implementing stuff. But it was, again, very much a deja vu from my days at
yeah.
Philips, where I was spending most of my time preparing, PowerPoint presentations. Um, and I was like, oh man, I I might go back to academia. I don't know what to do. This job is not something that I really like. But it also is like sort of like my former PhD advisor was calling it the golden handcuffs or the golden
Okay.
cage, because you are in a very comfortable position financially,
Yeah.
um, and apparently it's a stable job. Like, historically, it's a stable job, um, because car companies in Germany are, or were, doing very well at the time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Stability in the past 5 years has turned out to be something
yes,
interesting.
yes, yes, yes. I noticed back then, when I was there, that Tesla was making like pretty impressive stuff. And I noticed how difficult it is to build software in a company that is used to building cars, because I was in the IT department, let's say the software whatever department.
Yeah.
And it was hard because
You were
like
basically second class citizens of the company.
exactly, because the ones with the most power were the ones that were developing the hardware components that
Yeah.
are in the car, right? And the software part was like partially on the car, partially in the cloud. I was more like with the cloud division. Um, yeah, so it was a pretty interesting experience, and I saw like politics in companies at a level I've hadn't seen before myself. I don't know, I'm not saying that's the worst whatever, but I hadn't seen it myself before, and it was very confusing to me at first, and I started to learn why people are doing that, and I didn't like it, you know.
Yeah. Incentives, right?
Yeah, and I was again very lucky that someone like one of my second or my third, actually my third PhD advisor from Canada, he was at the University of Waterloo, and he was seeing Ethereum being launched at the time. He actually, like, while he was at the University of Waterloo, Vitalik Buterin was a bachelor student, and he could have done his bachelor thesis with this guy, right? But Vitalik, I think he dropped out of university, or I don't know if he finished. But anyway, um, he sent me an email. Like this professor sent me an email. Hey, like I saw this Ethereum thing being launched. It's super early, but I think it's going to be something really big. You should take a look because they're doing really cool security stuff. And then I heard about the DAO hack back in 2016, right? And that was fascinating because like so much value was stolen from a contract which was deployed on a permissionless chain, and everyone could see the code, and someone somehow found a new type of vulnerability that never existed before, which was called reentrancy. It did not exist in other systems, traditional systems. And I was working in a space where everything was like under NDA. Everything, like all the assessments are private, all the code is private. If you even dare look at our code, we're going to sue you. And everything was closed. So I was like super fascinated by this open world where everything is public, everything is permissionless. People are publishing their audit reports. I was like, wow, this is so crazy. And
The
that was
little
it. That's what got me like super interested. I was still very much afraid because of the price fluctuations. When I quit my job at BMW and joined crypto, everyone was telling me I'm crazy,
I
and
can imagine.
I'll be back in less than a year. My former boss was like, "Hey, no hard feelings. You're probably not going to be, in this crypto space for more than a year. So when you're ready, just send me an email, and we'll have you back on the team in no time."
In all
um,
fairness, very nice of him.
Very nice, yeah, very nice guy. So yeah, that was what got me into crypto. That was a very long answer
No,
for
it
your
was a good
question.
answer. It was a very good answer because it's basically sort of a hello to that moment earlier when you said that you were watching hacker movies and you were so excited about hacking. And yeah, it makes perfect sense when you saw the DAO hack. And it just, I imagine it went like beep, 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 beep in your head. It was like, wow, I would actually
Yeah,
hack things. I would actually like do things and not just, uh, you know, like do vendor assessment, which is I
yeah,
understand. I
it's a
totally
different
understand the
story.
move.
Yeah.
I totally understand the move. We are closing in on time, so I want to be mindful of that. But there is one or two other topics. We'll see how much we can cover, so don't worry about it. At some point, of course, you joined crypto, you joined the Quant Stamp, then you moved around a bit. But at one point, and you grew up to the ranks as well. But at one point, this is the story I want to focus on. You co-founded Chainproof. And Chainproof was meant to be insurance for smart contracts. Now, I think this was about when I was joining crypto, and I kept hearing about insurance around sort of the grapevine, and it was such an interesting topic. But it, well, I want to know why you left, and also, even though Chainproof is still alive, it insurance didn't really pick up. So I want to know why it didn't work. I want to talk about those aspects.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep the story short. Like, I was, again, very lucky. This professor who I mentioned was a advisor for QuantStamp at the time, and one
Okay.
of the QuantStamp co-founders and CTO at that time, wanted to talk to me. He liked me. He wanted to hire me. And I interacted with their team in person. And I said, like, oh my God, these guys are doing amazing stuff. This is so cool compared to what I was doing at my job at BMW. And I was like, wow, how did I not know about this earlier? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Right. So when I started at QuantStamp, I immediately started on a product. I was first a builder, a developer, a Solidity developer,
Okay.
building a product which was, similar to insurance, but not really. But it was like probably the closest thing you could get to insurance on chain. And I built that for about 1 year, together with a team, a super talented team. And once it was ready, we wanted to launch it, and it would have launched probably before Nexus Mutual, which was very successful at the time. And I think they still are successful.
They still exist.
But we didn't launch it because of the regulatory unclarity or inclarity that was, present at the time. This was 2019, early 2019. So we didn't launch it. Nexus Mutual launched. We thought, oh, regulator is going to go after Nexus Mutual. That never happened. So yeah, it was a sort of like a missed opportunity. But what we started doing when we hit that regulatory hurdle was that we started talking to insurance companies. And in 2019, I think I talked to somewhere around 30 insurance carriers, reinsurers, brokers. And I remember at the time they were starting to dabble with that. And they were offering insurance to custodians like Coinbase and Binance, offering custody insurance, protecting their private hardware keys and all that stuff. But protecting smart contracts, that seemed like crazy. Like, if I had $1 for every time I heard, like, how are you going to insure the price of Bitcoin? Like, they were not understanding what we want to insure. Like,
Yeah.
people were not understanding that there are smart contracts, which is code running on the blockchain. Everyone was talking about prices. So that took a pretty long time. And in 2020, I think towards the end of 2020, after everyone got over the first, hit of Corona, we had a breakthrough with Sompo, which is Japan's second largest insurance company, and Munich Re, which is the world's largest reinsurer. And at that time, like, we realized, okay, we have something that we can do with a license and not just, do something which is fully unregulated on chain. So we were super excited about this, and we co-founded together with, a bunch of people from QuantStamp, co-founded Chainproof. And in 2021, we just started. We got like a test license actually at the beginning of 2022. So we were super excited to be accepted to do like a pilot program with an actual license for this. And the only place we could find that was like open to do this was Bermuda. Bermuda had the digital asset legislation from 2019, actually. So it was very early. And yeah, we started doing it. And 2022 was, I think, beginning of 2022, we were really, really bullish on this. We raised a lot of capital. And then we all know Terra Luna happened. And that
Yeah.
basically started the domino effect of 2022 with Three Arrows Capital and many others like Celsius and FTX, right?
So would you say it was just a timing issue and that this idea should be tried again by somebody?
Oh, it's like insurance right now is booming. I think like retail doesn't see it because retail doesn't want to buy insurance. This was
Yeah.
never something which was meant for retail. When we built like
Yeah.
Chainproof, we were immediately targeting institutions. But
Yeah.
because of what all that happened in 2022, institutions were super afraid of crypto at the end of 2022, and some of them even closed their crypto arms in 2023 because
Oh
of
yeah.
the SEC crackdown on crypto. So it was like super bad timing. But with all that, we got our first customers for something which was Chainproof was selling at the beginning of 2024, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, and yeah. I think like right now it's going really well. Like now the demand for insurance is huge because of all the
Do you
institutions
guys do
going in.
anything related to that at Adevar? Do you facilitate that in any way? Do you do anything related to that?
We do the risk assessment for like the thing with insurance in this space is that you need to do a proper risk assessment, which requires specialists to look at the code, and not just the code but infrastructure and all the controls.
Monitoring.
Yes, and that's what we do. And then the insurance companies, they have their actuarial models which have a lot of parameters, and the values for those parameter or the inputs for those models are taken from these security assessments. And
Yeah.
based on that, a certain insurance premium is computed based on the value at risk and all of those assessments. So that's where we come in. And we now work mainly with brokers, where we basically if a broker or like maybe a carrier or a reinsurer wants to do a security assessment, we help them do that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. There's a million other questions I could ask you from here on out about insurance, about a few other things I wanted to talk to you about, but we are closing in on time. So I am happy we got a glimpse into sort of your story, into you as a human, into what you're doing, into what you've been doing. And maybe we're gonna someday do a second episode where we explore the remaining questions. But for now, I just want to thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Well, you've gotten to the end of it. Hopefully, this means you actually watched it and liked it, in the sense that you enjoyed it. But obviously, do click the like button. Now, to recap, I wanted to say that one of the biggest things I've learned from this call with Sebastian was that academia is actually not as stupid as I thought. Like, he's actually met real people. Like, basically, he was within one person of Vitalik Buterin. That is kind of crazy to be within a sort of let's call it a social circle that's like one connection, maybe two connections away from such big people. Now, of course, at that point, Vitalik wasn't as big as he is now, but still insane when you think about it. And I always, in my career up until this point, have completely discounted the value of academia. It's too late for me, but maybe it's not too late for you. Maybe you want to stick to academia, at least to some degree, if it's not preventing you from doing other quote unquote real things. Yeah, that's what I wanted to end with. Academia doesn't always suck.